Hey guys, in this video I'll be showing you how to create your own image background removal API. So I was creating an app and I wanted to be able to remove the background of an image. And being the lazy developer that I am, I googled to see if there were any APIs that could do this for me. And I came across a few, but Remove.bg is probably the most popular one. But it's very expensive. I mean, as you can see, they charge around 20 euro cents per image. And I thought that was, just too expensive. So I went around, looked some more to see if there was maybe a cheaper or smarter way of doing this. And I came across this very cool repository called Image Background Remove Tool by Hope or HBO. And this is a Russian guy who has integrated a machine learning model into a Python console line application. So he used this U2net model, and this model is capable of determining what the foreground and background of an image are. And in this Python console line application, he removes the backgrounds of images, and he also adds some post and pre-processing methods to improve the quality of the image. But I just want to send my image to an API and receive an image without the background. So what I did is I created an Azure function and integrated this image background remove tool in it. So an Azure function is a serverless service by Azure. And in this service, you can easily deploy small pieces of code in a very scalable and accessible manner. So an Azure function will handle scaling for you. It will also scale to 0. So if the function is not being used, it won't cost you any money. And you can configure this function to be able to respond to HTTP requests. And that's exactly what we want to do. A small downside of using an Azure function is that you can run into a cold start. And a cold start is when an Azure function, if it hasn't been used for a while, it will scale to 0. So there are no instances running your code. Now, this particular repository, so the image background remove tool and the U2net model, these are pretty large files, so they do take some time to load, around 30 seconds usually. So if you haven't run your code for a while, it will take a while for it to boot up. Now, small demonstration maybe. I've downloaded this image, this cat. And now when I send this image to my Azure function, I get the image back without the background. Now it took around 2.5 seconds, but usually if it's a cold start, it will take around 30. But because an instance is warm, it takes around 2 to 3 seconds. Now I really think this is an interesting way of adding AI functionality to an app. It's an easy way to, it's also a scalable way of adding AI functionality to your app. Okay, now I'm going to demonstrate how I integrated the image background remove tool in an Azure function. Now an Azure function basically consists of 2 parts. There's an Azure function project, and then there are the separate Azure functions. Now I have the CLI tools installed, so I can do func init to create a new Azure functions project. In this case, I will go for Python because I want to integrate a Python project. And then I can use func new to generate a new Azure function. And I use an HTTP trigger template because I want the function to be accessible over HTTP, of course. Now, this method, let me just, can I zoom in here? Yeah, easier. That's a bit too much. Yeah. So this will generate a directory into files for you. And let's go to the function.json file first, because this file describes the function. It will describe the type. In this case, it's an HTTP trigger. and it will respond to get or post methods. Also, you can provide an auth level here, meaning, yeah, do you need to provide a key or not? Well, I want it to be anonymous, so I will just tell it to be anonymous. And then you've got the init.py file, and this is really the entry of the HTTP function. So your HTTP requests will all end up in this method. You can access the parameters or the body of the method. And that's basically yeah, the basics of an Azure function. Now let me show you the actual project used to create the image background removal API. So it's a bit messy, but please forgive me. As in the other method, the request starts up in the main.py method. And basically I just read the body, I read the image, and send it to the application as if it was sent through the command line. That's basically the only thing that changed. Instead of sending a file over the command line or selecting a file, I just send it over HTTP. And that's basically all I did to convert the image background remove tool into an Azure function. It was really a really cool and time efficient way of adding this to my own project. So I hope you learned something. I will provide the GitHub repository containing all the code in the comments. And yeah, I hope you find this useful.